Tricia and Toby's love story is one of the most famous in country music. They met in high school and fell in love, and Toby went on to have hits like I Love This Bar. Tricia met Toby while working at an oil company and was immediately drawn to his bold charm. They were married for 39 years and had children who followed Toby into the music business. But as Toby's death approached, questions arose about what hidden truths might lie in those last desperate hours and what role Tricia played in it. The message was delivered, and it got its due. The next day it went to #1 and was trending like crazy. Now that they've put it on the radio, I was like, Toby's got a new song out? No, it's 4 years old, you just didn't hear it the first time. A month later, my son's fiancée doesn't have a father, and she asked him if I'd walk her down the aisle at my son's wedding. I thought, well, if I'm the last guy I'm going to make it, then hell yeah, I got scared. Their love a tale of enduring devotion. The story will be remembered for years to come as one of unbreakable bonds of love and devotion. Toby and Tricia's journey began soon after high school. At the time, Toby was already famous for his hit song, I Love This Bar. After dating for 3 years, they got married in 1984 and raised 2 children together. Toby started working as an oil rig worker right after high school in 1979. He said it was a hard and demanding job, but one that paid well. Even though he made $50,000 a year as the lead singer and guitarist of the band Easy Money, Toby mixed country and rock to make a sound similar to Alabama. It was while Tricia was working as a secretary at an oil company that she met Toby. She was drawn to his confidence and charm, which she would later say captivated her from the start. In 2023, the couple celebrated their 39th wedding anniversary, a milestone Toby marked by sharing a. Before she met Toby, Tricia had 3 children from previous relationships. Her first daughter, Shelley, was born in 1980. When Toby and Tricia got married, Toby treated Shelley like his own daughter. The couple went on to have 2 more children, a daughter named Crystal in 1985 and a son named Steen in 1997. Crystal, who was inspired by her father, became a musician, while Steen became a successful businessman who owned places like 405 Burger Bar and Hollywood. Toby received the BMI Icon Award in November 2022, which brought his whole family together. Around this time, Toby turned his full attention to music as the oil industry started to decline. Tricia stayed by his side through financial problems and career changes, even when others told him to look for a more stable job. In interviews, Toby often talked about how grateful he was for Tricia's unwavering support, which let him follow his musical dreams. But they still had a long way to go. Toby loved his time with Tricia. Toby loved being at home with Tricia and their kids, even when he was on stage or in the studio. In an interview in 1991, Tricia said that while many people saw Toby as a romantic, she appreciated his simpler acts of love, like saving money on flowers to buy her meaningful gifts or treat her to dinner. Tricia's presence was always a source of strength for Toby, especially at award shows. In September 2023, just a few months before he died, Tricia stood proudly by his side at the People's Choice Country Awards, where Toby was honored. Tricia cried when he accepted the Country Music Icon Award, but this emotional moment couldn't prepare them for what was to come. On February 5, 2024, Toby Keith died after a brave battle with stomach cancer that began in 2021. His death ended a deep and lasting relationship with Tricia that had been tested by many challenges over the years. Their story of love, perseverance, and shared dreams will continue to inspire those who knew and admired them and loved perseverance. When there is great love, there is often great sadness, but it is the love that lasts and inspires us even after the people we love have died. Toby and Tricia's story reminds us that true love isn't just about the good times, but also about being there for each other through the hardest times of life. The person thanked their conversation partner for making time in their busy schedule, recognizing the value of the conversation they were about to have, and they asked about the other person's well-being, noticing a calm demeanor despite appearing to be busy. In a reflection on personal hardships that required a temporary break from daily routines, the person talked about how the path was full of obstacles, but was navigated with a strong faith that served as a crucial guiding force. The person then turned their attention to the hardships caused by illness, especially the heartbreak of a late diagnosis, which set the stage for a discussion on faith's role during such trials. Diagnosed over 2 years ago, each day was described as a struggle for control and, as they talked about how their unwavering faith had helped them through a rough journey, they wondered if their companion's faith had grown stronger. They said that while their own hadn't necessarily grown stronger, their understanding of it had deepened, relying on it more heavily in times of despair. The story continued with a description of a profound experience they had in the spring after the diagnosis, one that went beyond words and was based on accepting whatever might happen next. They thought that this experience might seem hard to explain to those. For them, not having faith was like an unexplainable light switch turning off. But for them, faith was always there, a support system through everyday's challenges. The conversation then turned to a memory of a road trip and an interesting conversation with another traveler about the nature of belief. The other traveler was skeptical about faith and believed in unproven phenomena like UFOs, which made them think about the amazing things that happen in nature. They argued that there was a divine hand in life's balance and beauty, seeing it in every little miracle. The conversation ended with a question about how to explain the core of one's faith to someone else. This was related to the original theme of finding comfort and strength in belief in the midst of life's chaos. Faith isn't about following a strict set of rules, it's about building a personal relationship with the divine. This relationship is what keeps us going, a light that guides us through the darkest times. It's more than just teachings, it's a living, breathing connection that. There was once a man with a dream. He wanted to be a musician and was very passionate about his work. But life wasn't easy. He had to deal with financial problems as he pursued his career, and he barely made enough money to get by. His weekly income was between $230 and $250, and even though he performed for $3,000 over 5 nights, it wasn't enough to secure a stable life. To make things worse, he often had to drive long distances to places like Las Cruces, New Mexico, only to face the frequent. He had the bad luck to have flat tires that could only be fixed cheaply for 5 or 6 years. This was his life, a never-ending cycle of performing on the road, barely getting by, and hoping for a breakthrough. As he got closer to his late 20s, the weight of his problems grew heavier every night. He prayed not for money or fame, but for direction. He was grateful for what he had, but he needed to know if he should keep going down this uncertain path in music or turn around and find a new direction. He set a deadline for himself. He would be 30 if he hadn't found his way. He would change careers because he was a father of 2 kids, and soon there would be 3. The thought of continuing to bring home such little money weighed heavily on him, but he was still young and his spirit hadn't been broken by the hardships he faced yet. Then something unexpected happened. After being turned down over and over again in Nashville, where he had hoped to make his mark, his luck started to turn. A simple cassette with 6 songs that were close to his heart, but hadn't opened any doors for him yet. During his regular gigs in Oklahoma City every 8 weeks, he became friends with a club manager whose nephew had connections in the music business. This nephew set up a meeting for him. As his 30th birthday approached, he felt a mix of fear and hope. Would this be the end of his dream? But fate had one more surprise in store. While he was back in his hometown for his parents' anniversary, he ran into old friends who had moved to Nashville. These friends believed in him and took his tape. He surprised himself by giving the cassette to someone with influence in the music industry. This influential person was immediately interested in his work. Just days before his 30th birthday, he got the call that would change his life. He was asked to perform 2 sets of his music for this industry leader. The songs that had been turned down before were now his ticket to success. These performances got him a record deal, and his music career finally took off. Songs that seemed destined for obscurity would go on to become hits. It was a turning point that showed that true talent could still shine through, even in places like Nashville where there was a lot of competition. It was like the prayers he had whispered in the dark had finally been answered. This story isn't just about one man's journey, it's a reminder that in life, persistence can lead to the unexpected, and that just when everything seems lost, a door can open in the strangest place. It's a story that shows that even in the worst times, hope can find a way to come through. Toby Keith, a country music legend, died on February 5, 2024, after a brave battle with stomach cancer. His death marks the end of an era for both country music and the wider cultural landscape he influenced throughout his life. Toby Keith was born and raised in Clinton, Oklahoma, and spent much of his childhood on a farm near Oklahoma City. He remembers his grandmother's business, Billy. Keith loved Garner's Supper Club in Fort Smith, Arkansas, which later became Clancy's Tavern. It had a bar in the front and a fine dining area in the back where live bands played and people danced. The atmosphere made a big impression on young Toby and inspired him to become a musician. The club had such an effect on him that he named his 15th album after it, even though he had never played there before it was sold. Keith's path to music wasn't a straight line. He wanted to work in the Oklahoma oil fields like his father and grandfather did. He started working as a derrick hand right after high school because the oil industry was so strong at the time. His original plan was to study petroleum engineering in college, but the oil fields were too appealing. This early part of his life was marked by a strong work ethic, which would later define his music career. While balancing his demanding oil field job with his growing love of music, he formed As the oil industry went down in the early 1980s, Keith had to rethink his future. He lost his job in the oil fields and worked as a bricklayer and even a semi-professional football player, but his love for music never went away, and he eventually decided to make it his full-time job. His self-titled debut album, The Turning Point, released in 1993, was the turning point in his career. The album included the hit single The Turning Point. Keith's rise to fame began with the song Should Have Been a Cowboy, which was based on a funny event that happened on a hunting trip. The song quickly climbed the charts, launching Keith's long and successful career in country music. Keith's entry into the music business was marked by a stroke of luck, a chance meeting with a flight attendant who gave his demo tape to Harold Shedd, the head of Mercury Records. Opened doors that might not have been open otherwise. This connection led to a series of record deals and eventually the start of his own label, Showdog. Keith had a hard time with record executives, but one of the most important moments in his career was the release of Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, the Angry American in 2002. The song was a powerful response to the September 11th attacks. It hit home with a country still reeling from the tragedy and earned Keith both praise and harsh criticism. The song reflected not only the mood of the country but also Keith's loss. His father had died not long before the song was released. Keith's music became known for its themes of American strength and support for the military after the attacks, But Toby Keith was more than just a musician and businessman. He was also a smart businessman who built a huge empire that went far beyond the music industry. He started restaurants and other businesses and used his fame to make a lot of money. In 2013, Forbes named him the country's $500 million man for his business sense. Keith's combination of musical talent and entrepreneurial spirit made him a. When we think about Toby Keith's life, we are reminded that true passion and dedication can make a way that will never be forgotten, no matter where you start. His rise from the oil fields of Oklahoma to the top of country music stardom shows how powerful persistence can be, and how one person can change an entire industry. Restaurant Toby Keith didn't just give his name to a restaurant chain, he was deeply involved with this business. The name of Keith's restaurant, I Love This Bar and Grill, came from one of his popular songs. He didn't stop at just one location, he opened more across the country, though his level of control and ownership varied from location to location. These businesses became important parts of the communities they served, offering not only food but also a sense of local pride. But by 2015, reports from Arizona Central showed that the chain was having serious problems and locations suddenly closed. There were a lot of disagreements over business issues, and in the end, only two challenges restaurants remained open in Oklahoma. Keith, on the other hand, had more success in other areas. His record label, Show Dog, and his Wild Shot Mescal brand both made money, which gave him the freedom to invest in other areas. One of Keith's investments was in a clothing factory near his home in Oklahoma. When the factory was about to close, Keith tried to keep it going, hoping to run it in a way that wouldn't require him to make a profit. The factory couldn't stay open because it was too hard to compete with cheaper goods from other countries. Keith talked about his frustration with being misunderstood because of his lyrics. He was often called a staunch conservative, which was a label he never accepted. In a 2016 interview with the Chicago Tribune, Keith explained that he had never registered as a Republican because his family was Democratic, and he had been a Democrat until 2008, when he became an independent. According to reports from the Politics Atlantic, Keith was against the Iraq War and supported gay marriage and abortion rights. In 2017, Keith performed at Donald Trump's pre-inauguration event, where he said that his performance was in support of the presidential office and not necessarily the person. During the 2016 election, Keith was critical of both Trump and Hillary Clinton. His friend Bobby Pinson made fun of Keith's political views by calling them Toby Crat and Toby Can Keiths. The song Angry American, by courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, brought him national attention, but it also caused a fight with Natalie Maines of the Chicks, who said it was an insult to country music. Their fight became public, and Keith even showed an edited picture of Maines with Saddam Hussein during one of his concerts. However, Keith didn't care about the fight after seeing a friend's child die of cancer. That experience made him realize that fights are pointless, which led him to seek peace. When we see loved ones suffer, our priorities change. Keith's relationship with the Chicks could have gone in a different direction when former Vice President Al Gore asked them both to work together on a climate change awareness campaign in 2008. However, scheduling problems meant that they were unable to do so. Keith also became friends with comedian Stephen Colbert, whom he met when he appeared on the Seabert Report. Despite their initial reservations, they came to respect and understand each other's. Keith even gave Colbert a pillow with a funny message on it as a Christmas present. Charity Keith's commitment to cancer-related causes was deeply personal. After the heartbreaking death of his guitarist's daughter to cancer, he opened Ali's House to help families in Oklahoma who were dealing with the disease. His desire to help others led him to start the Toby Keith Foundation, which opened the $20 million OK Kids Corral in 2013 and gives free lodging to pediatric. Keith stayed dedicated to this cause until he lost his battle with cancer. Today, his foundation continues this important work, giving hope and support to people going through similar problems, even though he is still fighting his own illness. Toby Keith's legacy of kindness and strength lives on. Through his foundation. He continues to make a difference, showing that real impact often comes from going through the hardest times.